Oh, hi, hello, it's Pavs again. Long time no see, but welcome back to the shop. And today we are going to work on a little rig. So my clients are having a little jazz concert and they are renting the stage. And on that stage, they want to put a little decoration. So it's going to be a 2 meter in the diameter circle, and that circle should be spinning at about 10 RPM. It needs to be just a white circle, and they are going to paint on it some 3P patterns or something like that. But my task is to make a 2 meter circle that's spinning at about 2 RPM. Last night I've ordered on Amazon some parts and they should arrive in a couple of days. I'm going to have a little geared DC motor, a speed controller, some bearings, and some other parts. So here is my plan for the rig. Let's say this is the circle. I cannot just connect it straight to the motor like this. It's just not going to work. The shaft of the motor is only 6 millimeters thick. The circle is going to be quite big and it's just too much of the torsional load here. And it's basically, this connection here is pretty much impossible to make it rigid. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to have a shaft is going to be held by a couple of bearings, and on the end of the shaft I'm going to have a pulley, and that pulley is going to be activated by another smaller pulley that's going to be connected to our motor, and these two will be interconnected with a belt. This whole contraption needs to sit on some sort of a metal frame. The pulley on the motor is also going to be a little bit smaller than the pulley on the shaft, which is going to increase the torque and obviously reduce the speed a little bit because the motor is 100 RPMs. We need only 10, so it's 1 to 10 gearbox ratio. Or actually, I think I'm going to make it 1 to 5 so that I'm going to have some adjustability of the speed, so I can just make it from 50 RPM to, let's say, like 1. The parts should arrive in a couple of days, but I've had some spare time today, so I decided to come to the shop and turn some pulleys. Let's unveil the lathe and get some work going. This is 20 mil piece of aluminum. This is going to be a pulley that's gonna go on the motor. I'm going to use a 4PJ belt, and the belt got like 4 pointy things, so I need to have 4 grooves in my pulley. And I'm gonna drill and tap a couple of holes with some screws to lock it securely on a shaft. And now it's time for the bigger one. And this one, yeah, this chunk, it's pretty heavy. Not sure, but let's try. And here we have it. I know it's not super pretty, but I've made it in 10 minutes and it's going to do the job perfectly. I'm gonna still need to drill a couple holes and add a couple of screws to secure it on a shaft, but basically this is the bigger pulley and this is the smaller one. Ta-da! 1 to 10 ratio, or I mean, sorry, 1 to 5. How do I look? So next up, I'm gonna have to build a steel frame. I've already started cutting some metal. I'm using mostly scraps that I have. So yeah, it's gonna be made from pretty much random scraps. And the frame will be behind the circle, so nobody will really see it, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, they are going to need this rig only for one occasion, so. Quick update, this is where I'm at right now. This is the main axle for our setup. I also had to turn it on a lathe to make it exactly 20 mil because it was like 20 and a half. Now it's exactly 20 and you can see this beautiful fitment. So I put the pulley on it, drilled a hole with this super long drill. I drilled it through the pulley and through the axle all the way through both of them. Now I'm just cutting the thread on the axle, and then I'm gonna use the screw and put it through the pulley and through the axle, so it's going to be nice and secured on the axle. This is as straight as I could get it, but it's not straight at all, but I couldn't care less. It's a quick job. So the parts are finally here. Speed controller and our motor. Yay! Little guy like this. Yes, it's really good. It's gonna be perfect. Beautiful work. Yes. And the belt sits perfectly. I'm gonna need this slot to tighten up the belt. You'll see in a second. I have the speed controller. It was like €5. I don't know, I hope it's going to work. I'm not sure. I want to hook it up and see if the motor spins before I do anything else. Ow! Yay! Seems pretty much impossible to stop. And yeah, it works. I mean... So unfortunately at this point of the video all of the audio got corrupted, so you will have to enjoy my beautiful voiceover. So the next step for me was to cut out the 2-meter circle, and I used my classic router technique with a piece of plywood to make that cut. I've used an 8mm MDF because it's a fair bit cheaper than the plywood, and it's actually a lot more straighter than the plywood because the plywood is usually just warped a lot. And to connect the two halves together, I've used just another round from the plywood and a bit of a plywood in the middle to make it as a flange. And I attached it to the shaft the same way I attached the bigger pulley, just with a screw all the way through the shaft. Attaching the two halves together by myself was a little bit tricky, but I pushed it through and managed to screw it together with the big flange in the middle. I'm gonna add some probably like metal plates at the bottom a bit later for a better just connectivity of the two halves. And here was the first test. It actually worked perfectly the first try. I didn't have to do pretty much any adjustment, just straighten it out a little bit, and yeah, it worked pretty well. I was super glad, and it was pretty much ready to be given to the customer. I just had to paint it white and deliver it. And after some 2 coats of paint, I've delivered it to the client and they could do all of the black drawings, and in the end it looked something like this. Thank you for sticking around this time. Don't forget to leave that like, write a comment, what do you think of this build, what could be done better, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!